The wrench slipped from my greasy fingers as I heard my wife's car pull into the driveway. 20 years of marriage, and I still got that little flutter when Linda came home. Pathetic, really. I should have known something was wrong when she suggested we celebrate our anniversary with the gang instead of alone. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. Danny, you ready? Linda called from the house, her voice carrying that fake cheerfulness she'd been using lately. We're supposed to be at the Hendersons in 20 minutes. I wiped my hands on an old rag and headed inside. Linda stood in our cramped hallway, looking immaculate in a black dress that probably cost more than my monthly truck payment. Her blonde hair was perfectly styled, makeup flawless. She looked like she was going to a funeral. You're not wearing that, are you? She eyed my grease-stained work shirt with disgust. Give me 10 minutes. I headed upstairs to our bedroom, the floorboards creaking under my boots. Our house wasn't much, a 2-bedroom ranch in the older part of town, but it was ours. Or so I thought. The Hendersons lived in Maple Grove, the subdivision where all the lawyers and accountants had built their McMansions. Linda had been pushing for us to move there for years, but on my electrician's salary, we couldn't afford the down payment on a doghouse in that neighborhood. We pulled into their circular driveway behind 3 other cars. I recognized them all. Our usual crowd. Mike and Sarah Thompson, where Mike sold insurance and Sarah worked at the bank. Jeff and Karen Martinez, both teachers. And our hosts, Tom and Rebecca Henderson, where Tom ran his own accounting firm and Rebecca worked at Linda's law office. Remember to smile, Linda whispered as we walked to the front door. And try not to talk about work. Nobody wants to hear about electrical codes. The door opened before we could knock. Rebecca Henderson stood there in a flowing red dress, wine glass already in hand, grinning like she'd won the lottery. "The guests of honor," she announced loudly. Come in. We've been waiting." The living room felt like a furniture showroom, everything pristine and expensive. Our friends sat arranged on the leather sectional, all holding drinks, all wearing the same weird smile Rebecca had. Like they were in on some joke I hadn't heard yet. "Danny, Linda, sit here." Tom gestured to 2 chairs positioned directly across from the couch. It felt like we were on trial. "So," Mike Thompson raised his beer bottle. 20 years. That's quite an accomplishment these days." "Sure is," I replied, accepting a beer from Tom. "Though it doesn't feel like 20 years. Sometimes it feels like 40. Nobody laughed. Linda shot me a look that could have melted steel. "Actually," Linda stood up suddenly, her wine glass trembling slightly in her hand. "I have something to say. An announcement, really." The room went dead quiet. My stomach dropped. This was it. She was pregnant. At 41. We'd talked about kids early in our marriage, but it never happened, and we'd made our peace with it. Linda cleared her throat and looked directly at me. "Danny, you're terrible in bed, so my friends and I decided to leave you. Their husbands are better." The words hit me like a punch to the gut. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. The room spun slightly, and I gripped the arms of my chair to steady myself. Then the laughter started. Quiet at first, then building. Sarah Thompson covered her mouth, her shoulders shaking. Karen Martinez let out a snort. The men were grinning, trying to look sympathetic, but failing miserably. "Jesus, Linda," Jeff Martinez said, wiping his eyes. "You really went for it." "Wait, what?" I looked around the room, my brain struggling to process what was happening. "This is a joke?" "Of course it's a joke," Rebecca Henderson giggled. "We've been planning this for weeks. You should see your face." But something in Linda's eyes told me it wasn't entirely a joke. Something cold and calculating that I'd never seen before. "Right," I said slowly, setting down my beer. Hilarious. Really got me there. I forced a smile, but my mind was racing. The way Tom Henderson had smirked when Linda mentioned better husbands. The way he'd avoided eye contact with me all evening. The way Rebecca kept glancing between him and Linda. You know what, though? I stood up, my voice steady despite the rage building in my chest. Since we're being honest here, I've got something to share too. The laughter died. I've always wondered why Linda started working so many late nights at the office, and why she's been so enthusiastic lately. Guess now I know where she's been practicing. Linda's face went white. "Danny, don't what? Don't mention how you've been coming home smelling like someone else's cologne. Don't talk about the new underwear you've been buying. The kind you never wear for me." Tom Henderson's smirk vanished. Rebecca's wine glass froze halfway to her lips. "I think we should go," Linda said quickly. "Oh no," I said, settling back into my chair. "I'm just getting started. See, if we're playing truth or dare here, I've got some interesting observations about our little group." The room felt like a powder keg. Everyone was staring at me, waiting to see what I'd say next. But I was watching Tom Henderson, and the way his hand was shaking as he reached for his drink told me everything I needed to know. My wife hadn't been joking at all. I didn't sleep that night. Linda had barely spoken to me during the drive home, and she'd locked herself in the bathroom for over an hour. When she finally came to bed, she turned away from me and pretended to be asleep. I stared at the ceiling, replaying every detail from the evening. The way Tom Henderson had looked at Linda, the nervous energy in the room, the fact that everyone seemed to know something I didn't. At 6 a.m., I gave up on sleep and headed to Murphy's gym. The old boxing gym was my sanctuary, a place where things made sense, where problems got solved with sweat and honest work. "You look like hell," growled Eddie Murphy, the gym's owner and my closest friend for the past 15 years. Eddie was 65, built like a fire hydrant, and had been training fighters since before I was born. "Anniversary dinner with the wife and friends," I said, wrapping my hands. "Ah." Eddie nodded knowingly. "That explains the black eye you're going to give that heavy bag." I spent an hour pounding leather, working out my frustration on the 90-pound bag, but every time I closed my eyes, I saw Tom Henderson's smirk. "Eddie," I said during a water break, "you ever been cheated on?" "Once, long time ago." He spit into a cup. "Why?" "How'd you know for sure?" Eddie studied my face. "You don't ask that question unless you already know, son. The question is what you're going to do about it." I drove home through our neighborhood, really looking at it for the first time in years. Most of the houses needed work, peeling paint, cracked driveways, yards that had seen better days. It wasn't Maple Grove, but it was honest. Working people lived here, people who didn't play games. Linda was gone when I got home, but she'd left a note on the kitchen table. "Gone shopping with Rebecca. Back this afternoon." Rebecca Henderson. Of course. I'd never been the suspicious type, but 20 years of troubleshooting electrical problems had taught me to look for patterns. And the pattern here was becoming clear. Linda's laptop was still open on the kitchen counter. She'd always been careless with passwords, used our anniversary date for everything. How's that for irony? Her email was a gold mine. Dozens of messages between her and Rebecca, going back months. At first they seemed innocent, complaints about husbands, jokes about married life. But as I scrolled deeper, the tone changed. "Tom asked about Danny again today. I think he's getting suspicious." "Linda, 3 weeks ago." "Don't worry. After Saturday night, it won't matter what he thinks." Rebecca's reply. "I feel terrible about this. Maybe we should tell them the truth?" Linda, 2 weeks ago. "The truth? The truth is that you deserve better than a blue-collar nobody who comes home smelling like electrical wire. Tom treats you like a queen." Rebecca. My hands were shaking as I scrolled through more messages. Details about their affair, plans for their anniversary surprise, even discussions about how to split up our friend group afterward. But the worst part was the rating system. Linda and Rebecca had created a spreadsheet comparing their husbands. Categories included income, appearance, bedroom performance, and long-term potential. I ranked dead last in every category except reliability, where I got a grudging second place behind Jeff Martinez. The front door slammed. I quickly closed the laptop and grabbed a beer from the fridge, trying to look casual. "Danny?" Linda called. "You home?" "Kitchen?" I replied. She walked in carrying shopping bags from expensive stores I knew we couldn't afford. Her cheeks were flushed, and she had that guilty look she got when she'd done something she knew was wrong. "How was shopping?" I asked. "Fine. Good. Rebecca and I just, girl stuff." "Right. Girl stuff." I took a long pull from my beer. "Like planning your next joke?" Linda froze. "What do you mean?" "Last night. The whole 'you're terrible in bed' thing? Pretty elaborate prank?" "Oh, that." She wouldn't meet my eyes. "Yeah, Rebecca thought it would be funny. You know how she is." "I do know how she is. Question is, do you?" Linda started unpacking her bags, avoiding the conversation. New clothes, expensive perfume, lingerie I'd never seen before. "Special occasion?" I nodded toward the lingerie. "Can't a woman buy herself nice things?" "Of course. Just seems like a lot of nice things lately. New job paying better?" "Danny, what are you getting at?" I set down my beer and looked directly at her. "I'm getting at the fact that my wife of 20 years just publicly humiliated me in front of our friends, and now she's buying lingerie with money we don't have. I'm getting at the fact that you've been working late 3 nights a week for the past 2 months. I'm getting at the fact that Tom Henderson looked at you last night like he owned you." The color drained from Linda's face. "That's ridiculous." "Is it? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like my wife is having an affair with our friend's husband, and last night was your way of telling me. Linda's hands were shaking now. Danny, you're being paranoid. Am I? Then prove it. Show me your phone. What? Your phone. Right now. Let me see your text messages. Linda clutched her purse tighter. I'm not doing that. That's crazy. What's crazy is that my wife can't show me her phone. What's crazy is that she's buying lingerie and expensive clothes while I'm working overtime to pay our bills. What's crazy is that she thinks I'm stupid enough not to notice. I'm not having this conversation, Linda said, heading toward the stairs. Yes, you are. I stepped in front of her. Because I'm done pretending everything's fine. I know about Tom, Linda. I know about the emails, the late nights, all of it. Linda's face crumpled. For a moment, I thought she might confess, might break down and tell me the truth. Instead, she straightened her shoulders and looked me dead in the eye. You don't know anything, Danny. And even if you did, what would you do about it? You think anyone would choose you over Tom Henderson? The words hit harder than any punch I'd ever taken in Eddie's gym. But they also crystallized something in my mind. This wasn't just about an affair. This was about respect, about being seen as worth something. You're right, I said quietly. I probably can't compete with Tom Henderson's money or his big house or his fancy car, but I can do something he can't. What's that? I smiled, and I saw her flinch. I can play dirty. The next morning, Linda left early for work. I called in sick, first time in 3 years, and drove to the Henderson house. Tom's BMW was gone, but Rebecca's Mercedes sat in the driveway. I parked across the street and waited. At 9:47 a.m., Linda's Honda pulled up. She sat in the car for almost 5 minutes before getting out, looking around nervously. She had a key. My wife had a key to the Henderson house. I followed her inside. The back door was never locked in this neighborhood. The sound of running water upstairs told me where she was. I crept up the carpeted stairs, my electrician's training making me silent as a ghost. The master bedroom door was cracked open. Through the gap, I could see Linda and Rebecca sitting on the bed, both in bathrobes, talking in hushed tones. He knows, Linda was saying. He knows about Tom, about everything. How much does he know? Rebecca's voice was sharp, worried. Enough. He mentioned the emails. Shit. Tom said he deleted everything. Not everything. Danny's not stupid, Rebecca. I should never have listened to you about last night. Rebecca stood up, pacing. Last night was perfect. It gave us the opening we needed. Now when you file for divorce, everyone will understand why. Divorce? Linda's voice was small. I thought this was temporary. Rebecca laughed, a cold sound. Temporary? Linda, honey, you can't go back to that little house and that blue-collar life. Not after you've seen what real success looks like. But Danny and I have 20 years together. We have history. History doesn't pay for designer clothes or nice vacations. History doesn't get you invited to the country club. Rebecca sat back down, taking Linda's hands. Tom is ready to leave me for you. He's already talked to his lawyer about asset protection. You could have everything you've ever wanted. What about our friends, Mike and Sarah, Jeff and Karen? They'll understand. They've seen how Danny treats you. How does Danny treat me? Rebecca's voice turned venomous. Like you're some small-town housewife instead of a successful attorney. When's the last time he took you somewhere nice? When's the last time he bought you jewelry or surprised you with a weekend getaway? I'd heard enough. I backed down the stairs and slipped out the way I came. But not before I'd set up the small digital recorder I'd brought, a device I used for documenting electrical code violations. Sometimes the best evidence comes from people who think no one's listening. That afternoon, I drove to the law office where Linda worked. The receptionist knew me, smiled, and waved me through to Linda's office. But Linda wasn't there. Her assistant said she'd left early for a client meeting. Actually, I said, I'm supposed to meet her at that client meeting. You wouldn't happen to have the address, would you? The assistant, a sweet kid named Jennifer, checked her computer. That's weird. She didn't log any client meetings today, but her calendar shows she's blocked out until 5. Blocked out for what? It just says personal appointment. Sorry, Mr. Davis. I thanked Jennifer and left, but not before I'd planted a seed. If anyone asks, could you mention that I stopped by looking for Linda? I'm sure it's just a misunderstanding, but I want to make sure she's okay. By 5 p.m., the story would be all over the office. Danny Davis had come looking for his wife, who was supposed to be in a client meeting but had actually blocked out time for a personal appointment. Small towns run on gossip, and law offices are the worst. That evening, I made dinner, Linda's favorite, chicken parmesan. She came home at 6:30, looking flustered and guilty. How was your client meeting? I asked casually. Fine, just fine. Boring contract stuff. Which client? Linda paused, fork halfway to her mouth. What do you mean? I stopped by your office today. Jennifer said you didn't have any client meetings scheduled. Jennifer's new. She doesn't know how to read the calendar system yet. Right. I nodded. Must be confusing, having a personal appointment show up as a client meeting. Linda set down her fork. Danny, what are you doing? Having dinner with my wife, trying to figure out why she's lying to me. I'm not lying. I pulled out my phone and played the recording from that morning. Rebecca's voice filled our small kitchen. Tom is ready to leave me for you. He's already talked to his lawyer about asset protection. Linda's face went white, then red, then white again. You recorded us? You were in Rebecca's house? I was trying to understand why my wife of 20 years suddenly thinks I'm not good enough for her. Danny, you don't understand? I understand plenty. I understand that you and Rebecca have been planning this for months. I understand that Tom Henderson thinks he can buy my wife with promises of a better life. I understand that you rated me like a piece of livestock and found me wanting. Linda started crying. Not the pretty crying from movies, but ugly, desperate sobs. I never meant for this to happen. But it did happen. The question is, what happens next? I don't know. I'm so confused, Danny. I love you, but Tom Henderson has more money. It's not about money. Isn't it? Because from what I heard this morning, it's exactly about money and status and being invited to the right parties. Linda wiped her eyes. What do you want me to say? I want you to choose. Right now, me or him. Linda looked around our small kitchen with its outdated appliances and worn linoleum. Then she looked at me in my work clothes and calloused hands. I choose me, she said quietly. For the first time in 20 years, I'm choosing what I want. And what you want is Tom Henderson. What I want is a life where I don't have to worry about money, where I can buy nice things without feeling guilty, where people respect me. People respect you now. No, they don't. They see me as Danny Davis's wife, the electrician's wife. They're polite because they have to be, but they don't really see me. I stood up slowly. You know what, Linda? You're right. I can't give you Tom Henderson's money or his big house or his country club membership, but I can give you something else. What? The truth. About what kind of people your new friends really are. About what Tom Henderson is really like when he thinks no one's watching. About what Rebecca really thinks of you. Linda's eyes narrowed. What are you talking about? I smiled, and this time I didn't try to hide the anger behind it. I'm talking about the fact that you're not Tom's first affair. You're not even his second. I'm talking about the fact that Rebecca knows all about his other women and has been using you to keep him distracted while she moves assets into her own name. I'm talking about the fact that you're not getting a rich husband, Linda. You're getting played. That's not true. Isn't it? When's the last time Tom took you somewhere public? When's the last time he introduced you to anyone as his girlfriend instead of his wife's friend? Linda's silence was answer enough. Here's what's going to happen, I continued. You're going to pack your things and move in with your sister while you figure out what you really want. I'm going to take some time to decide if I want to be married to someone who thinks so little of me, and our friends are going to learn exactly what kind of people they've been supporting. Danny, please. I'm done, Linda, with the lies, with the disrespect, with pretending that everything's fine. You want a different life? Go get it. But don't expect me to make it easy for you. That night, Linda packed 2 suitcases and left for her sister's house across town. I sat in our quiet kitchen, drinking beer and planning my next move. Because if my wife and our friends wanted to play games, I was going to show them how it's done. Word travels fast in a small town, especially when it involves affairs and divorce. By Thursday morning, everyone knew that Linda Davis had moved out. By Thursday afternoon, everyone knew why. I didn't have to say a word. The recording I'd made at Rebecca's house had somehow found its way to several key people around town. Not through me, of course. I'd simply left my phone on the bar at Murphy's gym where anyone might have heard it. Eddie Murphy had connections everywhere. 30 years of training local cops, firefighters, and city workers had given him a network that would make the FBI jealous. Shame about Linda, Eddie said as I worked the speed bag. Though I can't say I'm surprised. No? Saw her at that fancy restaurant out on Route 9 last week. Looked real cozy with Tom Henderson. Man's got a reputation, you know. I stopped punching. What kind of reputation? The kind where his business partners keep their wives away from company parties. The kind where he's been through 3 secretaries in 2 years, all of them young and pretty. The kind where his own wife has been seeing a divorce lawyer for 6 months. Rebecca's filing for divorce? Eddie grinned. Not just filing, already filed. Turns out she's been documenting his affairs for years, building a case. Your Linda isn't his first rodeo, son. She's just the most recent. The pieces clicked into place. Rebecca hadn't been helping Linda steal her husband. She'd been setting up the perfect witness for her divorce case. A woman who could testify to Tom's pattern of seducing married women, his promises to leave his wife, his manipulation tactics. Linda wasn't getting her fairy tale ending. She was getting used. That evening, I drove to the Roadhouse bar where our group used to meet for drinks. Sure enough, Mike Thompson and Jeff Martinez were there, huddled over beers and talking in low voices. "Danny," Mike looked up as I approached. "How are you holding up?" "Better than expected," I said, signaling the bartender for a beer. "Mind if I join you?" They exchanged glances, but made room at their table. The conversation was awkward at first. Nobody knew what to say about Linda leaving. But after a couple of beers, tongues started to loosen. "I have to ask," Jeff finally said. "Did you really not know?" "About Linda and Tom. I suspected something, but I didn't want to believe it." "We should have said something," Mike shook his head. "But it wasn't our place." "How long did you know?" Another exchanged glance. "Couple of months," Jeff admitted. "Sarah saw them at that new hotel downtown. She wasn't sure if she should tell you." "And you, Mike?" Karen mentioned that Linda had been asking weird questions about divorce law, about asset division. We thought maybe you two were having problems, but we didn't know about Tom until recently. I nodded, filing away the information. "What about the others? Tom and Rebecca?" Mike snorted. "Tom's an ass, always has been. Acts like he's doing us a favor by hanging out with us regular folks." "And Rebecca?" "Rebecca's..." Jeff paused, searching for words. "She's complicated. Smart as hell, but there's something cold about her, like she's always calculating something." "You think she knew about Tom and Linda?" "Had to," Mike said. "Nothing gets past Rebecca Henderson. Question is, why didn't she stop it?" I took a long drink of beer. Maybe she didn't want to stop it. Over the next hour, I carefully planted seeds of doubt. Nothing direct, nothing that could be traced back to me. Just casual observations about Rebecca's behavior, questions about Tom's other affairs, speculation about what Rebecca might gain from a messy divorce. By the time I left, Mike and Jeff were looking at the situation very differently. Friday morning, I got a call from Linda. She was crying. "Danny, I made a mistake. A huge mistake." "What happened?" "Tom won't see me anymore. He says Rebecca found out and threatened to take everything in the divorce if he doesn't end it immediately." "I'm sorry to hear that." "Are you? Really?" I considered the question. "I'm sorry you're hurting, Linda. I'm not sorry you're learning what kind of man Tom Henderson really is. Rebecca said horrible things to me. She said I was just another in a long line of stupid women who fell for Tom's act. She said she'd been planning to use me as a witness in her divorce case. And now? Now she doesn't need me anymore. She has enough evidence without my testimony." Linda's voice was small, defeated. "Danny, I want to come home." "Do you? Or do you just want somewhere to go because your other option fell through?" Silence on the other end of the line. "I deserve that," Linda finally said. "I deserve all of this. But Danny, we had 20 good years together. Doesn't that count for something?" "It counts for everything, Linda, but I'm not sure it's enough anymore." "What do you mean?" "I mean that I've spent the last week learning what our friends really think of me, what you really think of me, and I'm not sure I want to be married to someone who sees me as a consolation prize." "I don't see you that way." "Don't you? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you only want me back because your upgrade fell through." More silence. "I need time, Linda. Time to figure out if I can trust you again. Time to figure out if I even want to." "How much time?" "I don't know, but I know this. If we're going to have any chance at all, it starts with you being completely honest. About everything. About why you really started the affair. About what you really want from life. About whether you can actually be happy with what I can provide. And if I can't? Then we end this cleanly, with whatever dignity we have left." That afternoon, I was working on a rewiring job when my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "We need to talk. Rebecca." I finished the job and drove to the address she'd sent, a coffee shop downtown, neutral territory. Rebecca Henderson looked like hell. Her perfect hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail. Her makeup couldn't hide the dark circles under her eyes, and she was wearing jeans and a sweatshirt instead of her usual designer clothes. "You destroyed my marriage," she said without preamble. "I'm pretty sure your husband did that all by himself. Don't play dumb, Danny. That recording, the gossip, turning our friends against us. Very clever." I sipped my coffee. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Of course you don't," Rebecca leaned forward. But here's what I know. Tom is broke. His business is failing, his assets are tied up in lawsuits, and he owes more money than he's worth. Your precious Linda was chasing fool's gold. Why are you telling me this? Because I want you to know that I did you a favor. Linda would have left you for a man with nothing but debts and problems. At least this way, she learned the truth before she ruined her life completely. How noble of you. Rebecca's eyes flashed. You think you're so smart, don't you? Playing the wounded husband, getting everyone's sympathy. But you're just a small-town electrician who couldn't keep his wife satisfied. I set down my coffee cup and looked directly at her. You know what the difference is between you and me, Rebecca? Enlighten me. I never pretended to be something I wasn't. I never manipulated people or played games with their lives. I never used someone's feelings to get what I wanted. I stood up. Linda made her choice, and she has to live with it. But you? You orchestrated this whole thing. You pushed her toward Tom, knowing he was using her. You set up that humiliating anniversary dinner. You played puppet master with people's lives because it served your purposes. Prove it. I don't have to prove it. Everyone already knows what kind of person you are, Rebecca. The question is, what kind of person do you want to be going forward? I left her sitting in the coffee shop, staring into her cup like it held answers. That evening, Linda called again. Danny, I want to come home. Not because Tom rejected me, not because I have nowhere else to go. Because I realized something today. What's that? I realized that for the past few months, I haven't been myself. I've been trying to be someone else. Someone I thought was better, more sophisticated, more worthy of respect. But that person isn't real. She's just a fantasy Rebecca sold me. And who are you, really? I'm a small-town lawyer who married an electrician because he made me laugh and made me feel safe. I'm someone who used to be happy with simple things. A quiet evening at home, a weekend camping trip, dinner at the local diner. I'm someone who forgot that those things have value too. I closed my eyes, feeling something loosen in my chest. Linda, I'm not asking you to take me back right away. I know I have to earn your trust again, but I'm asking for a chance to remember who we used to be together, who we could be again. It won't be easy. I know. People will talk. They'll always remember what happened. Let them talk. I'd rather be gossiped about in a town where people know my real name than respected in a place where I have to pretend to be someone else. I looked around our small kitchen, with its outdated appliances and worn linoleum. For the first time in weeks, it felt like home. Come home, Linda. Let's see if we can figure this out. The next morning, I woke up to the smell of coffee and bacon. Linda was standing at the stove in her old robe, the one with the faded flowers that she'd been embarrassed to wear in front of her fancy friends. Good morning, she said softly. Morning. We ate breakfast in comfortable silence, reading different sections of the newspaper like we had for 20 years. It felt normal, but different too, like we were both being more careful, more aware of what we had and what we could lose. Danny, Linda looked up from the local news section. I saw something interesting here. What's that? Tom Henderson's car dealership filed for bankruptcy yesterday, and Rebecca Henderson was arrested for embezzlement from her law firm. I raised my eyebrows. Really? That's unfortunate. Linda studied my face. You wouldn't happen to know anything about that, would you? Me? I'm just a small-town electrician. What would I know about bankruptcy and embezzlement? Linda smiled, the first genuine smile I'd seen from her in months. Right, just a small-town electrician. Though I did hear, I added casually, that Rebecca had been skimming money from client accounts to pay for her lifestyle, and that Tom's business was built on predatory loans and illegal financing schemes. Funny how these things come to light eventually. Funny how they come to light right after someone starts asking the right questions. I shrugged. Truth has a way of surfacing, especially in a small town. Linda reached across the table and took my hand. I'm proud of you. For what? For fighting for us. For not letting them get away with it. For showing me what real strength looks like. I squeezed her hand. I didn't do it for revenge, Linda. I did it because some people needed to learn that actions have consequences, that you can't treat people like disposable objects in your personal drama. And now? Now we figure out how to rebuild, how to trust each other again, how to remember why we fell in love in the first place. Linda nodded. I'd like that. 6 months later, we were stronger than we'd ever been. Linda had started her own small practice, handling real estate and family law for working-class families. I'd been promoted to supervisor at the electrical company. We'd bought a new couch for our small living room and painted the kitchen. We never moved to Maple Grove. We never joined the country club. But we were happy in a way that didn't depend on impressing other people or keeping up appearances. Tom Henderson left town after his business collapsed, owing money to half the city. Rebecca Henderson was serving 18 months in minimum security prison and had been disbarred. Our old friends, Mike and Sarah, Jeff and Karen, gradually came back around. It took time to rebuild those relationships, but eventually we found our way back to something like normal. The difference was that now everyone knew what we were capable of when pushed too far. They knew that quiet, small-town people could fight back when necessary. They knew that respect wasn't something you could buy or fake. It was something you earned through your actions, and they knew that sometimes the best revenge isn't getting even. Sometimes the best revenge is simply refusing to let someone else's poor choices define your worth. Linda and I learned something important during those dark months. A marriage isn't measured by the size of your house or the number in your bank account. It's measured by whether you choose each other, again and again, even when it's difficult. We chose each other, and that made all the difference.